Good morning, everybody. It's Eric Lloyd here, coming from Toronto, Canada. And today's live stream event is all about the future of ESP and where we're going and what's happening and status of what's going on with BitMart, as well as some of the use cases and when we're moving what we're moving forward to. So we're going to start off, I think, with the meat of the matter, talking about BitMart, the current status of our listing. We'll move on to talk a little bit about some of the services of ESP, the bridge specifically, because we've had some issues with the bridge between BSC and Ethereum because of a change in service provider. So we'll talk just briefly about that. I want to talk a little bit about the two use cases, Talk2Expert as well as SchoolConnect. Just some status update, what we're doing there, and then a little discussion about investors. Now these, the things that we're doing to get investment back into the project in terms of the use cases, which ultimately will drive adoption of the token. So let's start off with talking about BitMart and the current status is there. So we did receive notice day before yesterday that we will get delisted if we do not improve the liquidity of the token by the 16th of December. So that's only a few days down the road. So we have a couple options. And it's worth, I think, delving into. Hopefully, we'll get some interactivity on the chat here to answer any questions and get some feedback as we discuss some of the options. But let's take a little look at what they actually shared with us, and let's take a quick boo there. What I've done is I've screen captured my Telegram conversation that they sent out to me. We have had some additional conversation after that in terms of the things that we really need to get done. But certainly the writing's on the wall here that we have to see some improvement in the token from the standpoint of remaining on BitMart. So they actually have provided 7 different criteria, and we're going to go through each one. And I apologize if it's stretching this out a little bit, but just to make sure we understand what each one of these criteria means, as well as what can we do to hit those targets. Now the exchange has been pretty flexible, and if we don't meet all these requirements, doesn't mean we will get delisted. What they're looking for is improvement to the metrics. So let's go over the first one. So the spread shall be smaller than 2%. Well, right now that's a virtual impossibility because right now if we're going from 1 to 2, that's 100% difference in spread. 2 to 3, okay, so now we're 50%, and 3 to 4, it's obviously 25%. But ultimately, to get it within 2% is a pretty daunting task for us, because we'd have to be up somewhere in the 20 range, and we're at 1 right now. So what we need to do there is we have a couple options. The thing that I've been dreading for many, many months was adding more zeros to the price, which then would allow for fractional pricing between these ranges, and therefore allow the order book some flexibility to get closer to the actual range, to the 2% requirement, or even meeting or exceeding the 2% requirement. I've had 2 streams of thought on this, mostly because we didn't want to have add a couple more zeros to the price, and all of a sudden we see more attrition in the price, again devaluing the token. The reality is that on Uniswap and PancakeSwap, we could be several extra zeros in our price to get something a little bit more refined. And so to match with what's going out in the real world, I'm going to suggest that we add a couple of zeros to the price, and hopefully there isn't a ton of incentive to try to bid down the price all the way down to, an extra zero in front and pushing even, all the way down to, 6 zeros and a 1 or something like that, because we'll be back in the same position. But the idea here is to give some flexibility in terms of, a change in price of going from 1 to 2 being a 100% increase is kind of a big nut for people to get involved, because, the upside risk is pretty good, but if somebody buys in at the 2 range and it drops to 1, they've lost half their value instantly. So I'm going to suggest, and I'd be looking for feedback from people on the chat here, whether they agree. But the first thing we can do is to add 2 more zeros to the price. This allows then a finer control over the pricing of the token, and hopefully can actually start to get some trades in place. And if we look at some of the other requirements, you can see how some of this will play into each other. So the second item is there are more than 30 orders on each side of the order book. Well, currently, we have lots of people selling. There's way more than 30 orders on the order book. Right now, we don't have any on the buying side, and so it's one-sided. And what they want to see, when we start to look at items 3, 4, and 5, they want to have certain totals of what the value of the order book within the range of the median price. And adding a couple more zeros to our price to try to get some refinement there can allow the existence of orders on both sides of the book. Right now we've been jammed at, we're at the floor in terms of the price. Unless we clear out the ones every time and fill that out with buy orders, we can't meet any of those requirements. So again, I think the answer there is adding a couple of zeros to the price, and hopefully we can start to see some movement. The sixth item is having a trade every hour. Certainly, if we can start to get some volume movement or just some order movement, because we have finer pricing on there, and again allowing for some easier trade to go back and forth, this is probably an achievable function. And then the average daily volume is more than 50,000 USDT. Again, that's a bigger hurdle for us, but reality is that because you're on both sides, the buy and the sell, it's really a $25,000 transaction, which equates to 50K. What BitMart is looking for is some activity and some movement and some volume starting to be generated. As soon as we start to do that, they will delay any delisting process or procedure, and I think that's ultimately where we want to move to. Obviously, So my proposal, or at least internally how we've discussed here, it makes sense is that to back up a little bit, my discussions directly with BitMart, that is their recommendation, is to add 2 more zeros to the price, let the market go where it's going to go. In the meantime, if we're starting to trade and we delay the delisting, it gives us more time to build out the use case and actually start to get some purchasing in place, because ultimately that's the solution to the long-term problem and gives us long-term sustainability. ESP has always been about not being just a hollow token that's just on hype or what potentially may happen down the road. We've got a couple of businesses built around this that we're trying to stretch out. We do have one that's in a minimum viable product stage, so it's actually online, and if we can get some more content on there, we'll actually start to see some buy volume. But right now it's been a struggle. So moving forward, I think let's talk a little bit about some of the ESP related services. The next topic is the Ethereum to Binance Smart Chain bridge that we have. Currently, the bridge is not operational. About 8 weeks ago, a service provider that we use that provides basically on-chain services for both Ethereum and Binance through an API that we access to get things like pricing, address verification, how we manage certain portions of the security aspect. They do one element of the signing out of all the 8 different steps that we do, so they're a part of it. They have ceased to provide that service. They deprecated that service in lieu of something else. What they're using or what they're providing now isn't compatible with how we implemented our bridge. So we looked at an alternative. There is one that provides basically the same functionality, but again, it's not identical, and it requires that we make some changes and whatnot. And for us, because of the sensitivity of the security for the bridge and the things that we need to secure and implement it and whatnot, there's about 100 hours of work involved to get that going. And right now, based on the 20 some odd transfers that have actually happened over the bridge, I cannot put that at the higher priority to do that first when we're trying to work on the investors, on the use case, and some of the other aspects of the project. So it's not means we're going to abandon it or close that off. Anybody who needs to transition between the 2 networks, just reach out to me on Telegram, and then we can do it manually. No problem. I've already done that for 2 people without any problem. It's a couple of steps of process, but it takes no more than 10 minutes. And it's basically you send me tokens, and I send you back tokens on the opposite side. So it's pretty straightforward. So I will be the bridge, so to speak, for the next 6 or 8 weeks. If we finally get things going and we can get the elements with the use case and some things happening with investors, then I will accelerate that refactoring of the code, so it's again able to work with a new supplier, service provider. Then we'll have it automated, but right now it's not, and we haven't had a huge demand for it, so I'm putting it a couple stairs down on the priority list. Next, talk a little bit about the use cases, because again, this is the elements that are going to drive the value of the token going forward. The first one is Talk2Expert. In the August time frame, we launched the minimum viable product, so people can actually try a couple of the courses. We do have 3 that are available. One's in Portuguese, the other 2 are in English. One's about understanding stock investment and how you evaluate various businesses, how you read a balance sheet, profit and loss statement, these types of things. It's actually a pretty good course. And then we have one on sustainable development and leadership. So the problem there is, again, we had 16 or 18, I think it's around 18 different content providers that have yet to finish their content or produce. And so going to market with just a handful of courses is not, it just doesn't have critical mass yet. So we're working on that. And while we had the product out there, and it's still out there, obviously, is we take the feedback and what's working, what isn't working. Clearly, from a marketing aspect, there's some things we need to do to stylize up the site to make it more attractive, to get people involved, and we'll do that. Actually, let me switch you guys back to looking at me for a little bit. But yeah, so we'll be looking at the various aspects of reskinning the site. We're going to be looking at rebranding a little bit in terms of look and feel. There is a potential name change as well, just to see if we can get a little bit more attraction there. And this all stems from the fact that I did bring in a partner to help bootstrap the business. Dipto, who I mentioned before, she's a professional chef. She's not an online celebrity, but a television celebrity. So she's been on TV. She's done a bunch of things all over the world with people like Holland America and others. She runs a bunch of charities in Sri Lanka and Vietnam. She is from Vietnam, and so fits right in because our target market to begin with is Vietnam. And so she's going to be able to produce a couple of cooking courses. Her husband also is a celebrity chef who runs a whole bunch of high-end type of culinary engagements, catering, and so on and so forth for big events. So he's also willing to put together a course. So we've got some courses that are coming, but more importantly is that we're restructuring in a way that will excite to get more content. We also now have decided that we're going to go out and raise some capital directly for Talk2Expert, so we can actually purchase our own content. That way we can go out and shoot, produce, develop, and then publish at least 10 courses to begin with. So we'd have a nice stock of content that's that goes live, gives that critical mass to the platform, gets out, and therefore starts generating revenue. We also will have marketing campaigns specifically for getting content creators on board, and we'll be charging for some of these things for people to come on board. That way there's again a sense of urgency in order to get the courses done. The problem is that we have 15 wonderful course providers that have indicated, yeah, they really want to do this, they're excited about it, but when the rubber hits the road, content's not getting created. It's always, I don't have time now and whatnot. So we're addressing all those different elements. We're also broadening what Talk2Expert is, because I think part of it is we want to create a community of content creators. So we'll be doing things like user groups. We'll be integrating the Talk2Expert platform within SchoolConnect for part of the learning management system. So it'll actually be some content delivery for the schools as well. So there's lots of different things that are happening there. And so I've been more or less 90% of my time on the Talk2Expert front to try to grow that out. As quick as we can make that happen, the sooner we'll have more liquidity flow back into the token. And then SchoolConnect, as I had mentioned, SchoolConnect is been on, we've had plans for it. It's been, we've done a certain amount of work on the back end in terms of some of the technology, but we have not done any further on development because the coin didn't raise the capital that we needed to actually execute that project. And that's probably a good point to talk about, because everybody, there's been some discussions in the Telegram group that, the token's not moving, there's not a lot of liquidity, there's not many transactions, why is it slow? It's taking so long to come out with these platforms. And the reality is that we didn't raise any capital for either the platforms. And therefore, we've only been able to do it on a best effort basis. Talk2Expert, we always envisioned a team of 6 or 8 people. This is developers, content editors, whatever it might be, marketing people, in order to grow this thing out. Instead, we're mostly 1 and partially 2 people developing this, and so what would have been, 40 man months of work is now being done by 1 or 2 people. Obviously, it's taken a lot longer. But it is the platform that we want to get out first, because that's the simpler of the 2 platforms. SchoolConnect, we will not do any further development on until we get the capital in place, because that, for it to be successful and really get that out in the market, both from a development standpoint as well as a business standpoint, requires about 30 people, right? And so we're trying to raise about $3 million USD in order to run that development, the onboarding, and getting the product out initially in Vietnam, and then followed immediately on by UAE and Brazil, where we actually have agreements. So we've gone out there and I've done all the pre-sales. We've got out, we've got 600,000 plus students ready to go in UAE through a committed relationship. We have a distribution partner for Brazil that has access to 30 million of the 65 million students that exist in Brazil. These are massive numbers for us, and hopefully we can go forward with the development and get this out in the field, because there we can make a really solid impact to the quality of education for students. And it's something that we've been, I've personally been involved with trying to get off the ground for the last 3+ years, with COVID throwing quite a wonderful wrench into things. But that's the case with SchoolConnect. We're not doing any further development on that until we raise funds, and we'll talk a little bit about that now on the investor side. So part of what we want to do is, since we're not getting raising the capital directly from the token, unless something magical happens in the next 5 or 6 days, we've had to go back out to the street to raise capital, really in line with trying to get SchoolConnect. So we're out there asking for the $3 million. I've been engaged with, I don't know, now it's I think a dozen different investors. We have 4 or 5 that are actually interested and have asked for more information, or going through the due diligence process. We just started a new one on last Thursday, and that one looks really promising because they're more focused on the educational space. And of course, we've had a number that are not ready for us in a seed stage. They want to join us when we're in a Series A round, where we have an established product, we're starting to grow market share and so on and so forth, and then it's about accelerating the platform. So we have those investors that are kind of waiting, but really we're looking for that angel investor, that seed investor that's going to get us off the ground, help us get going. We'll give up a piece of equity to make that happen, and push that forward. Part of that funding, that thing, will be used to develop and further and complete Talk2Expert and get that more fully integrated, so we can get that producing a revenue stream. So for the people that are watching, which I think is only a handful right now, please ask your questions in the chat, because I'm here really to answer any questions about BitMart, about what's going on with the investors, or any of the use cases. I can talk here all day, but probably that's not a ton of value for everybody. But specifically about the strategies that we can do to help kind of keep the coin alive on BitMart. Now, that being said, and the one thing I haven't said, or I haven't said here yet on the video, is what's the worst case scenario? So the worst case scenario is that we can't get that done in the time that BitMart wants. They want to proceed with the delisting, which is their choice. I don't have a ton of sway with them. I have been negotiating with them for the last year to keep us on, and they've been very, very helpful. They've accepted what we're doing and whatnot, but they're running out of patience, and just like everybody else, they want to see some movement in the token. So do I. They have to make a business decision. So the worst case is that we get delisted. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that your tokens go away or they're lost. That will not happen. You will always have a period of time to withdraw the tokens into your own local wallet. So anybody can download MetaMask and put ESP, move it off the exchange into their into MetaMask. You will have the ability still to trade the token via Uniswap, which if we do get delisted from BitMart, then we'll increase the liquidity pool because it's very small on Uniswap. Or you can actually bridge those tokens from Ethereum to BSC, and then you can also trade on PancakeSwap. In fact, through the MetaMask interface, you can trade directly on MetaMask. So just click swap and swap to USDT or any other token that you want, both buying and selling. You can do that directly with MetaMask without actually going to Uniswap or going to PancakeSwap. Now, if you're doing larger amounts or whatnot, there might be an unfriendly price conversion. But so far, I've used it several times on smaller amounts, and it's perfectly fine, especially on the BSC side. There's been no problem with working with PancakeSwap. In this case, if you want to see the graphs and what's going on with the token, there are a lot of free tools online, like DX tools, that allow you to track what's going on with the token and see what's going on. What trades, who's making the trades, what the current liquidity is, of course, what the price trends are, and so on and so forth. So just like what you would see in BitMart, you can get that level of detail for what's going on separately in Uniswap and what's going on not just Uniswap, but what's going on on the Ethereum side versus what's going on the BSC, because DX Tools actually looks at the on-chain transactions, right? So any of the transactions happening within Uniswap or PancakeSwap all happen on-chain, okay? Where what's different with BitMart and most central exchanges is, you have the on-chain swap where you're taking the tokens and moving it to a BitMart wallet, and then internally they track all the transactions, and then at the end of the day net it out, and that's what ends up going back onto chain when you do a withdrawal. So that's where we're at. I'm kind of hoping that we get some questions here. So for the people who are watching, can somebody just shoot off a message, make sure that they hear me? Because I don't see any noise coming in on the chat. And I'd really like to answer any questions I can, because there's always questions on Telegram. What's going on with the token? Why isn't this happening, or what's new? I'm just going to check Telegram. Okay. Oh, one guy's asking where's it at? Link is pinned. Sorry, I had to type some response there onto the Telegram side. Okay. If everybody could just ask the questions in, well, I guess they could do either Telegram or YouTube. It's a little easier if you do it on YouTube for me. But please ask your questions, and I'd like to address them as quick as I can. So I've covered off on the major points today. Really, the notice that we have from BitMart, the 7 criteria, and let's go back to what those actually look like. We'll go the criteria for what we need to do, and there's 7 of them. Again, we don't have to hit all these 7. We have to just see improvements, that there's upward momentum going on with these things, that BitMart will delay any delisting. Really, to get to the 25K in trade volume should be pretty easy. And I've, in the past we were well over 100,000. We had times where we're $200,000 or $300,000 in trade volume. So it's definitely doable. And if we hit hit that 25,000, which creates a $50,000 volume number, we're making serious headway, and that would delay any delisting. My suggestion, again, by adding a couple of zeros to the price will then allow for us to have the order book tighten up in terms of the differences in price. Therefore, meeting some of the percentage requirements, actually maybe having some offers on some purchases that are being made and listed on the order book, so everything's good to go. So the order book is really important that we start to get movement there, and that's what they're trying to do. If we don't hit the $10,000 ultimate number, I think we're okay. Again, they've been very accommodating. They've been pretty flexible. They just want to start to see some changes and some improvements. So I think the first thing we'd do is move to adding those zeros and see what that does to the price. Maybe that in itself will start causing some trading and go back and forth. I don't know, but let's see. The problem too is even if we start to see a whole bunch of upward mobility, we're a hidden token, meaning that we won't show up in the top gainers list with BitMart until we hit one of these thresholds. If we meet the thresholds, we'll get listed about we'll get listed in the the right way to say this. If we meet the threshold, then we'll be back to normal trade status, and then we'll show up on the various lists. Our feed will start to be reported again back to CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko and others. I'd be able to use an external market maker that would help manage the token on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so first question in. How about you make a new token and airdrop it to ESP holders? This way you can regain capital, and this way you also give us the same percentage as the total token supply. Doing a new token and a whole project around it is a fairly complicated process. This is a good question. It's worth discussing. When you create a token, first of all, the code to create it is relatively straightforward if the token's simple, but you have to get it verified. So you go to Surtech, get it verified. That costs between $15,000 and $20,000 US. We could put it on the various DEXs for just putting in a liquidity pool, so that doesn't cost any money. But we need to do some marketing, advertise an airdrop, and then hopefully see it run up. I don't see any advantage. I don't see any advantage to doing that. Because we're not really gaining anything. We're creating another token that requires a whole ecosystem, and then if we want to get listed at any of the exchanges, again, like BitMart, that's another $50,000 plus expense. Actually, it's now $75,000. So it's a $75,000 expense. There's a legal opinion, all these different things, and now actually where we're domain, there's some countrywide regulations that we have to adhere to. So it's a complicated process and not so easy. So I probably think that's not going to get us very far. But let me see. I'll discuss it. Each one of these points are valid. I will discuss them again amongst the group and of course our seed investors. Many of them, we have about 50 billion tokens held by the original seed investors. So they have a vested interest in seeing the performance of the token. So I'll have a discussion with them as well to see if we want to do that. Next question, how about you buy and sell yourself to increase the volume? I actually did that, and that works. You know, to run the volume between you know, a couple of accounts, to make that happen, it definitely works. Where it wasn't working in our current arrangement is that I have no open space to do those trades back and forth, because we don't have any of the levels at one. People just keep going in and scooping up. Like if I do a buy, somebody will come in and drop their tokens in, and so I can't have capital that, you know, basically slingshots back and forth between two accounts in order to drive up volume, right? Adding zeros to the price will free up obviously a lot of space where maybe some more of that can happen, and that's a definite thing that we can do. Now, BitMart is not dumb. They will know this game. If all I do is I trade between two accounts, they see that the activity is only between two accounts, they're going to go, this is not real volume. But certainly, you know, if we do some of that along with, you know, other people doing it back and forth, and we can actually drive some volume, then we'd get there. If we got to 50K on just trade volume, we'd probably be pretty safe, because that's been always the way they discussed that with me in the past. All we had to do is meet any one of the seven criteria. If we did that, then we're good to go. The same thing with you know, having a trade every hour. If we have more space within the order book in order to execute those trades, then you know, a trade every hour is pretty simple. So I think really, you know, the more I think about it, the more we talk about it here, having a couple more zeros on the price is going to afford us to do a couple of things. Even though we don't want to see price attrition go below the one that we're at now, I guess it's a necessary evil, A, to align with what pricing we see in the both Uniswap and PancakeSwap, but to give us the breathing room in order to execute, you know, more trades and maybe actually generate more interest, that we'll see some real trading back and forth, and some people are actually trying to take advantage of the more refined pricing. So I think that's unless there's some serious apprehension for me doing that, again, I will discuss it with you know, a number of our people, but I expect that at the end of today I will request that they update the token to allow 2 more zeros of precision for the price, and then we'll see how that goes, and then see if we can drive some more volume. Any other questions? Just check the various things. I'll pop up again the requirements, because I think this is probably pretty key. Let me just see if I can make this a little more readable for everybody. Oops. Sorry, I can't easily see on this little screen what this looks like. All right, there are the 7 requirements. Maybe a little bit easier for everybody to read. Again, you know, we got to get the spread a little tighter. Having having the extra zeros will allow us to do that. There are more than 30 orders on either side of the order book. I'm not sure we can get to there, but certainly if we see an improvement there, that's a positive. There are more than $3,000 UST worth of orders on either side of the order book within 2%. So again, if we start to see movement in the token and some actual trade activity amongst the community, that we can potentially make that happen. Again, so that's really the same thing for 4 and 5. 6, at least there's 1 trade every hour, as I mentioned, is, you know, if we get into any normal kind of, you know, trade status, having, you know, tens, hundreds of trades in a day is very normal. So just having 24 per day is not a big deal. So I think that's an easy metric to hit. And the average daily volume more than 50,000 USDT. Getting to 50K USDT shouldn't really be an issue. Again, we had volumes that were quite often in excess of 100 and 200,000. I think our all-time high was somewhere in the 700 range. But reality is for the longest time we hovered around, in that 80 to $120,000 range. So getting there is definitely possible. Okay, next question is, what happened to your crypto course? Nothing's happened to the crypto course. In fact, I've shot chunks of it, and I've been pretty focused on the other elements of the business. But because of we weren't getting the other content there, I didn't want to put my course out until we reached that critical mass of the 10 courses, because I don't think my course on its own is going to drive very, very much volume. That being said, I'm still continuing to produce it when I have some time between tasks. But the main focus here is to close in on the investors, get the other content providers producing, and moving that out. So we're doing a lot on the content creator side. We're creating a benefits package. We're going to have a user group meeting where we travel to somewhere in the world. The first one will be in Vietnam. I believe we're looking at the May timeframe, where it's a users conference. We'll have other content creators come out and speak. We'll have other industry experts, maybe somebody in terms of how you video course, or the psychology of how you undertake how you do the marketing and these types of things. So, all right. So we're doing a lot of different things there to incentivize. We're changing the pricing model a little bit, adding a couple more layers of value added that we're going to provide. The company will arrange, and we have branding experts. So with Dipto, she's a digital marketing expert. She has background in personal branding, but also access to the right people to bring on board. So for instance, if a content creator says, look, I got a great content, but my personal brand, nobody knows me. I don't have any followings on YouTube or Facebook or any of that stuff. How do I get started? And so we have people that will put on the, for a small fee, to help that person develop their personal brand, their messaging, their look and feel. And then ultimately, what do we do from, SEO side, search engine optimization, YouTube ads, banner ads, all those different things, specific landing pages to drive content. So all that's coming to an updated, revamped version of Talk2Expert. I think you have to coordinate between a team of yours to be able to fulfill the requirements rather than leaving it to the market. So I'm going to disagree a little bit with that, because the project can't create volume, right? Even if we had all the money in the world, we're not creating volume. That's not what the project's there for. The market creates volume. Now, the project needs to create the market and get people excited, and that's why the use cases are the important side. But hitting those requirements in terms of so much value at these different levels within the order book, that's for the market to determine, not for the project. The whole point here is that this is supposed to be a publicly available market. Okay, good question though. Like I appreciate the point of view, but the project is, first of all, it has no ability to undertake any of that kind of market activity. Even when we did have some cash and we were doing some market management back in December before the hack, where we're seeing some price attrition, still, or not attrition, but price growth. we are still reliant on 90% of that or 80% of that coming from the general market. Yeah, we're doing things to help stimulate the market. We're making strategic buys, and we'll continue to do that. And the use cases as they come online and producing revenue, will continue to be purchasing ESP tokens to help, support the market and getting some liquidity in there. But the reality is that the order book is driven by the market and not by the project. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna hang out here for another 4 or 5 minutes to see if there's any additional questions that come up, and certainly I'm happy to answer anything as best I can. We've talked a little bit. We understand. Everybody wants to maintain things on BitMart if possible. We're doing the best we can. If we can get some market activity because we've changing the pricing structure of the token, that'll be great. The other benefit is that once we get to normal trade status with BitMart, it allows us to incorporate again staking within BitMart, right? So you wouldn't have to take it out of BitMart, move from BitMart to BSC, and then BSC into our staking platform, because it's a lot of steps, and for some it's daunting. I understand that. To just be able to stake in BitMart would be easier. On a normal trade mode, if we get to that, we will definitely be restarting the staking there. So that's a definite we will be doing. And again, if we have to look at the worst case scenario and we do get delisted by BitMart, we'll continue to offer the staking. We'll strengthen the liquidity pools both on the Ethereum and BSC side. I'm going to say though that our preference, at least at this point, is going to be we'll broaden out the BSC side first. It's just far more cost effective than the Ethereum side. The gas fees are just what they were. A year ago, the gas fees were atrocious. To do a single a swap through Uniswap, it was running $50, $60, $70 in terms of cost of Ethereum, and it's just too high. Nobody's interested in that. Whereas at the same time on the BSC side, it was costing you 12 cents. So it's really difficult to justify trying to do a lot of trading on the Uniswap side of things, even though the price of Ethereum's come down by 50% now. They moved from proof of work to proof of stake. So that's also, and they've changed, now they're burning Ethereum and all this stuff. The liquidity mining is not nearly as attractive. The gas prices generally have come down pretty substantially, but they can still run up there, right? To have, 50, 60 GUI, is pretty normal. There's times where I've seen it as low as 5, which is a very, very low cost transaction on Ethereum. If it was always consistently like that, then we would have stayed within the Ethereum space, because then there'd be no need to be on BSC, but BSC was put in place specifically to address the cost of gas on a transaction. It was too high on Ethereum, and it was really killing us. Okay. Anybody else got a question to ask? All right. So for as much as I think we only had a handful of people on today, so I'm not certain whether that's just bad timing on our side or people didn't know about it, but I'm going to leave the live stream up, or sorry, a copy of the live stream up for people who watch it later, and let's see what we end up with. Hopefully we can get some movement. I will more than likely add the 2 zeros to the price if they allow us to do that. I'll make the request today after I have some internal discussions with the investor base, but that being said, expect that within the next 24 hours that change will probably be made, and I will announce it obviously everywhere that we've added zeros, so it will make trading hopefully easier. It opens up obviously more trade lanes for me in order to move tokens back and forth to drive up some volume, which I will do some of that. But ultimately, we're looking for the market to pick some of this up, and the market has. There's been more trades actually within the ESP ecosystem over the last month than there has in the previous several months. So some more tokens have been picked up, and so maybe that's a good sign. So I thank you all for spending the hour with me. If feel free to reach out to me on Telegram, and I'll try to address any more questions that come afterwards. And let's see if we can save our place in BitMart and move this forward while we complete out Talk2Expert and actually then start to drive some real volume into some real purchase volume into the token. Because that's always been ultimately the goal. That's currently the goal. That's what I'm doing every day, and we're trying to make it happen on behalf of everybody. Okay, thanks again, everybody.